In the 6th century BC, the Babylonian war machine swept across the ancient Near East, crushing everything in its path. When they conquered Jerusalem, the empire abducted the city's brightest young minds. The goal was total erasure. They stripped these youths of their native names and forced them into a rigorous re-education program to break their cultural identity. They were brought to the center of the world. The sheer scale of Babylon, with its towering glazed architecture and imposing animal reliefs, was engineered to make captives feel insignificant. It was a civilization that demanded absolute conformity. Among these captives were 4 young men, Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were selected for elite service in the royal court, yet they refused to surrender their heritage. Their story poses a brutal question. When an overwhelming superpower demands you abandon who you are, do you blend in to survive, or do you stand your ground and risk the fire? The resistance begins at the dinner table. The Babylonian court offered the captives daily rations of rich food and wine straight from the emperor's personal supply. Daniel declines the meal. By choosing vegetables and water instead of the royal feast, he draws a quiet but dangerous line in the sand. It is a daily, physical rejection of the empire's attempt to absorb him. The conflict soon expands to national politics. King Nebuchadnezzar erects a towering golden statue and decrees that every citizen must fall down and worship it the moment they hear the royal music play. But Daniel's 3 friends refuse to bow. For this act of treason, the king orders the men bound and thrown into a massively overheated, blazing furnace. But the flames do not consume them. The king looks into the fire and sees 4 men walking freely. He is forced to pull them out and publicly acknowledge that their god possesses an authority that eclipses his own. Eventually, Babylon falls, and the Persian rule begins. Yet the demand for absolute loyalty remains exactly the same. Under the new regime, a law is passed making it illegal to petition any god or human other than the king. Daniel continues to pray toward Jerusalem 3 times a day, earning him a death sentence in a pit of starved lions. Morning arrives, and the king finds Daniel completely unharmed. The empire's favored apex predator, a symbol used to strike terror into conquered peoples, is rendered entirely docile. Through both quiet dietary choices and public acts of treason, these captives demonstrate that faithful resistance exposes the limits of imperial power. Halfway through the book, the narrative style abruptly changes. The heroic tales of surviving the royal court give way to surreal, terrifying dreamscapes. Looking at Chapter 7, Daniel sees the 4 winds stirring a great sea. From those waters emerge 4 monsters, a winged lioness, a bear with ribs in its teeth, and a final unnatural beast with giant iron teeth designed to crush the earth. In ancient literature, the churning ocean represents primeval chaos and death. These beasts symbolize human empires, violent, predatory systems rising from disorder to ravage the world. Then the scene shifts to a heavenly courtroom. A figure called the Ancient of Days takes a throne made of fire. He issues a judgment, stripping the beasts of authority and destroying the worst of the monsters. In their place, a human figure, described as one like a son of man, arrives riding on the clouds. The Ancient of Days grants this human figure a permanent, indestructible dominion over all nations. This cosmic sequence reveals the hidden reality behind earthly politics. Superpowers act like predatory monsters, but their time is strictly limited by a higher, eternal divine authority. This style of writing is known as an apocalypse. While modern audiences often associate that word with the destruction of the earth, its original Greek meaning is simply an unveiling, pulling back the curtain to show what is actually happening behind the scenes. To understand why this curtain was pulled back, we have to look at the people reading these texts in the 2nd century BC. The Jewish people were living under the thumb of the Seleucid king Antiochus IV Epiphanes. He launched a brutal campaign to erase their culture, banning their religious laws, desecrating their temple, and murdering those who refused to assimilate into Greek customs. In the midst of this trauma, the Book of Daniel served as a coded manual for survival. By using legendary narratives of the Babylonian exile, The authors secretly inspired their contemporaries to resist their current oppressor. When empires act like beasts and demand total submission, the book offers a blueprint for endurance. It argues that clinging to your identity in the face of death is not a defeat, but a participation in the ultimate triumph of a divine kingdom.